Hey, how's it going? So, for many years, Kurt's been trying to get famous online on his channel, Kurt's World. Seriously, he does a bit of everything. Draw My Life videos, gaming, sneaker reviews, and he even talks about his favorite keyboard shortcuts. He also features his dad, Chris, who's a DJ and divorced Kurt's mom a long time ago. Since his mom got really sad, Kurt decided he'd be a good son and live with her while making some cash as a babysitter. But no matter how much he records, Kurt just can't get a loyal audience. You know, his numbers never get past single digits, unlike Bob and his channel, Bob Basecamp, a kid he used to look after who's now famous. Kurt thinks he's friends with Bob, but Bob just kinda tolerates him and always pushes him away from the camera. After about 10 years of failed streams, Kurt finally hits his breaking point and decides to give his channel one last shot with something he calls The Lesson, which is supposed to teach you how to get followers online. He starts out by rigging his car with a bunch of cameras and a whole lot of water bottles, saying it's the first step of the lesson. If you don't document it, you don't exist. Kurt's gonna use the car to work as a driver for a rideshare app called Spree. The very first passenger he picks up is some guy who refuses to put on his seatbelt and is sketchy about the cameras, but Kurt just says they're for protection. The dude then starts preaching some white supremacist stuff, and Kurt gets worried that this racism could hurt his livestream audience, which right now is pretty much just Bob. So then, he starts driving way more recklessly. The man complains, but Kurt encourages him to drink the free water. Turns out, the water has been poisoned, and Kurt even made a tutorial on how to do it without getting caught. Kurt cranks up some music and blows through a red light while the guy dies in the back seat, coughing his lungs out till he's dead. Kurt's only viewer, Bob, thinks the death was just staged to get views, but Kurt doesn't really care since it's all part of the lesson. At the start, nobody's supposed to realize what he's doing is for real because he wants to do as much as possible without being detected to get a bunch of attention later on. Kurt's next passenger is an arrogant real estate agent who leaves her sign in his trunk. After a bit of a chat, she grabs a water bottle all on her own, quickly becoming Kurt's second victim. Kurt then gets into the back seat to show the body on camera and even jokes that he could drink the water too. Right then, his dad Chris calls Kurt asking for a ride, but Kurt just hangs up on him. So he starts to cover his tracks. He unlocks the woman's phone using her dead face and gives himself 5 stars on the app. Afterwards, he replies rudely to one of her messages so that no one will expect her at her meeting. After getting rid of the body, Kurt picks up his next fare, a big tough guy named Mario. Kurt tries to play his own music, but Mario complains and also refuses to drink any of the free water. So, Kurt takes a detour to pick up another passenger, completely ignoring Mario's complaints since he chose the carpool option, eh? The passenger is a famous influencer and comedian named Jess, who cancels the ride as soon as she hears Mario hitting on her and gets out. Mario forces Kurt to follow her, and Kurt offers her a free ride just to get her in the car. While he's driving, Kurt finds out she has tons of followers and asks how she got them. She just replies that she's funny, that's all. Kurt keeps asking her for help, and Mario keeps hitting on her with really inappropriate comments. So Jess records the whole thing for her social media before getting out of the car, totally fed up with the 2 weird guys bothering her. Now, Kurt is pretty cheesed off that he lost his chance to befriend a successful influencer. He suddenly changes his route and takes Mario to a remote construction site. He drives so fast that Mario starts to feel sick, so Kurt makes him get out of the car so he doesn't puke on the seats. Mario complains but gets out because he needs to relieve himself. At that moment, Kurt blasts his own music at full volume and floors it to run Mario over, sending the body flying over the car and landing on the windshield, which makes for a perfectly gory angle for the camera. After he gets rid of Mario's body and cleans the car, Kurt stalks Jess on social media and sees that she has a stand-up show that night. He takes this as a sign, saying that he and Jess are 2 great things happening on the same night. Obviously, Kurt isn't a big deal at all yet, since he still has very few viewers, and his only donor is Bob, who still thinks the murders are fake. That's because Bob is a super fake creator himself, always pulling pranks on homeless people, and the one time he supposedly helped them, it was all just staged for the camera. This is way different from Jess, who people actually like because she's genuine and relatable. A few moments later, Kurt stops at a gas station where he gets rid of the realtor sign and fills up while arguing with Bob, who tells him he's boring and needs to shake up his live stream. Once all the blood is cleaned from the car, Kurt tries to liven things up just like Bob said, by driving recklessly for his next passengers. It's a trio of socialites, including Richard, Kendra, and London. At first, Richard and Kendra are totally freaked out by Kurt's driving, but London is all excited because she feels like she's on an adventure and jumps into the front seat to chat with Kurt. Eventually, Kurt goes off route again and takes the trio to a scrapyard. telling Richard and Kendra to hang out of the sunroof because there's an amazing view there that's perfect for social media pics. Richard and Kendra get into it and have some fun, but then Kurt starts speeding up and suddenly closes the sunroof, trapping his next victims while his music plays in the background. Just then, some wild junkyard dogs attack Richard and Kendra, and Kurt grabs a power drill that he keeps in the car to kill London. After that, Kurt takes the car to a car wash and calls Bob to see what he thought, but unfortunately, he didn't see the triple murder. In fact, Bob had stopped watching the live stream because Kurt just doesn't interest him. Kurt demands to know why Bob hasn't given him a shout out like he promised, and Bob says he should be more like Jess, who seems authentic. Kurt looks at Jess's social media again, but his jealousy makes him comment bitterly on the silliest little details, like saying she doesn't even film her stories vertically. While a bitter Kurt drives towards a house in the suburbs, Jess posts the video she made in the car to expose both Mario and Kurt. Later, she visits her grandmother to take care of her while recording for her social media channels. Suddenly, the doorbell rings and she gets worried because she wasn't expecting anyone. But it's just a fellow stand-up comedian, Mike, who wants to discuss some work stuff. Turns out, Kurt is visiting Bob, who tells him to get lost because they aren't friends, and this is all said right in front of the camera for the fans to see on the live feed. Bob insults Kurt while he begs for help, and Bob's fans end up going over to Kurt's live stream to see the other side of the story. Kurt suddenly stabs Bob with a knife as his live stream hits double-digit viewers. Bob tries to defend himself with a gun, but after a struggle, Kurt overpowers and kills him. Even though the audience thinks it's all fake, Kurt jumps to triple-digit viewers by hosting his live stream on Bob's channel. He even films himself taking a shower to wash off the blood and going through Bob's stuff. At that moment, his dad sends him a message saying he needs a ride to a gig. At first, Kurt doesn't want to help because he wants to go to Jess's show, but when Chris mentions he's going to meet a famous DJ, the chat recognizes the name and Kurt jumps at the opportunity. Kurt picks up Chris and their father-son relationship is obviously awkward, leading to a quick argument. Chris is shocked to find Bob's gun in the car and tells his son off, which just sparks another fight until they have to hide the gun because the cops are nearby. When they get to the club, they find the famous DJ, whose name is Uno, and ask her to tag Kurt's channel in a post. At first, she says no, but then she gets tired of it and agrees to give him the shout out if Kurt takes her to a taco food truck. Eventually, they find a taco truck and Uno demands that Kurt take pictures of her and wait in line as part of their deal. The line is super long, so Kurt tells disgusting stories to scare away the other customers. Meanwhile, Uno snoops through the car and finds the gun Kurt took from Bob, using it as a prop for her selfies. Then she drinks a little bit of water, but it's one of Kurt's special concoctions, and she immediately passes out. When Kurt gets back with the food, Uno is unconscious and he quickly gets rid of the water bottle. Unfortunately for him, this gets the attention of the cops. The cops ask Kurt to do a sobriety test while he pretends that Uno is just his girlfriend who fell asleep. Suddenly, Uno wakes up because she didn't drink enough to actually die, sees the police, panics, and shoots one of them before running off. One officer goes after her and Kurt uses the opportunity to escape in the car, but he's being followed. All of this boosts his live viewers up into the 5-digit numbers, with the chat getting more and more hyped. Desperate to shake the cops, Kurt drives like a complete maniac and ends up crashing into a homeless encampment, purposely killing a few people before the car flips over. Meanwhile, Jess is getting a ride to her show with Mike, who keeps bugging her, saying he has a ton of connections. Mike brags, trying to impress her, but she's just plain annoyed. He also does an opening set for her but doesn't make a single person laugh. However, the crowd goes absolutely wild when Jess gets on stage, and hiding in a corner is Kurt holding his gun. After a few jokes, Jess talks about her experience in the spree with Mario and Kurt, saying Kurt's obsession with followers made her think happiness isn't about having a lot of subscribers. It doesn't matter how many views you get, you just get judged and hated for other people's entertainment. She finishes by smashing her phone on stage, ending her dependency on social media with a mic drop, leaving everyone totally shocked. Moved by the speech, Kurt decides to leave, but then discovers that Spree has been suspended because of his killing spree. Kurt gets a ride from another app called GoGo and gets into the car of a friendly guy named David, who right away makes a joke about not being that crazy driver who's killing people. Kurt takes it personally and doesn't hesitate to kill David in seconds. Back at the bar, Jess is tired of Mike, who won't stop filming her even after she quits social media, and decides to ditch him by calling a go-go. David's car arrives, but it's Kurt driving, and he reveals to Jess that he's the driver she made fun of at her show. He also tells her he was at her show, so he knows she can't use her phone to call for help because she broke it. Thinking Jess is completely defenseless, Kurt says he's going to take her to his place. He says he wants them to express love instead of hate, but Jess doesn't give in. She fights back with a charging cable, chokes Kurt, and the car crashes into a dumpster. Kurt stops the car, huffing and puffing, and retaliates by punching Jess, knocking her unconscious. Then, he takes her to the front lawn of his house, where he drags her body into the headlights. He asks his audience what he should do with her, and the viewers choose that he should kill her. Kurt gets ready to run her over while his viewers flood the chat. However, when he stops to adjust a camera that fell, he loses sight of Jess. He gets out of the car to look for her while the chat calls him an idiot. The audience was right, of course. Jess seizes the opportunity to get into the car and take the wheel, immediately using the vehicle to run over Kurt. However, she loses control and ends up driving the car straight through the side of his house, but Kurt manages to get out of the way. Then, he tries to kill Jess by pushing her face against the airbag, but Jess shoves him off, and Kurt runs into another room while Jess tells the live stream that she needs help and tries to convince them it's real. Chris also arrives and is completely shocked to find the house destroyed with Kurt's mom dead on the floor. It's revealed that she was actually Kurt's first victim. He killed her off-screen before even starting the lesson. Suddenly, Kurt shows up and grabs Bob's gun from the car, which he uses to shoot his dad several times, killing him quickly. Meanwhile, Jess tries to escape in the car, but since the reverse gear doesn't work, she drives forward and smashes Kurt against the wall. The chat tells her to check the body, and Jess discovers that Kurt isn't dead yet. She's forced to finish the job by smashing his head in with her phone, while a quick flashback from a few minutes before shows Kurt feeling like a total champion because he had 50,000 people watching. Then, the chat asks for a selfie with the body, and Jess actually does it. In the following days, Kurt's case becomes viral news. Jess ends up more famous than ever, like a multimedia queen, and even though Kurt is despised by all the reporters, he's seen as a hero by some of the darker corners of the internet, like 4chan and Reddit. As these forums fill up with adoration for Kurt, one user reveals that they're making a movie about him called Spree, and that's how the 2020 horror thriller movie Spree ends. And I'll catch you in the next video.